Good morning. Okay. Thank you. Great to be back in Southwest Florida. Great to be back in Lee County. And thanks to the Southwest Florida Public Safety Academy here at Fort Myers Technical College for hosting us. Really excited to be here, excited to be able to sign some legislation. But before we get into that, I will just say, Florida is looking at what is going on at the southern border and the rolling disaster and impending even greater disaster with the expiration of Title II. And so late last night, Florida was able to win an injunction. And I want to thank Attorney General Ashley Moody for filing that, to say that Biden cannot just release all these people into our country who are here illegally. And that is putting some sand in the gears for them. And maybe it will cause them to look internally and say, maybe we should start doing our job and actually protecting the American people for a change, because they have not been willing to do that. And in fact, you now see more people than ever are prepared to storm across. And so from really the beginning of this administration, anytime Florida could do something to make an impact, we have done it. We did beat them on catch and release. We're able to go back to that court and get the injunction yesterday. So maybe that will prompt some introspection in the Biden administration. I doubt it very seriously, but what they're doing is a total disgrace. So thanks for Florida for stepping up. Thanks to AG Moody. We're really excited to see the American people fight back for a change, and that's what we do here. Well, we got a motley crew with us here today. We've got, of course, our Senate President Kathleen Passidomo from nearby, so your Senator John Martin, and then we've got a lot of the representatives, Persons Malika, Botana, Snyder, Esposito, and Gia Lombardo. So I want to thank all of them for what they did, and really a historic legislative session. I don't think that there's ever been anything that has quite matched that in terms of the major reforms that were passed, and really the breadth of the things that were tackled. And this today is what we're talking about is a good example of kind of the posture about, we're on offense in the state of Florida. We're leading, we're getting ahead of issues, and we're making sure that your freedoms are protected against threats that may not even necessarily be here right now, but are developing. And so that is, I think, the hallmark of good leadership. Commissioner of Agriculture Wilton Simpson is here, and he'll be saying a few words. Then we're joined by Samantha Beeler, President of the League of Southeastern Credit Unions. Taryn Bragdon is the founder and CEO for the Foundation of Government Accountability. Matt Kennedy, owner of the Alamo Range, Naples, and Shirley Wattrall for Women for Gun Rights. So you're going to hear from them as well. Part of the reason that we're here today is because we want to protect your financial independence. We want to protect your financial privacy. And you've seen over the last however many years, particularly with things like COVID, you've seen governments really crack down on people's ability to exercise their basic rights. If you remember when the truckers in Canada were protesting those draconian vax mandates, they were raising money, they were doing things. People were getting their bank accounts frozen. The charities were getting frozen, and that was done by the Canadian government. And so you see, this is the type of power that some of these governments want to exercise. Now, we've always thought, hey, that could never happen in America. But I think we've seen over the last few years just how fragile the freedoms are. And I think you see there's a lot of people gunning for freedom here in the United States because it conflicts with their ideology. So some of the things that we've done, of course, we signed legislation a couple weeks ago kneecapping this idea of ESG in the state of Florida. They call it environment, social governance. In reality, that's just a facade for using the private sector to enact a political left-wing agenda. And they want to go after things like domestic energy production. They want to go after Second Amendment rights, people involved in the firearm industry, and on down the line. And that's being done without any voters actually weighing in on it. These people aren't elected to anything. but they're really colluding to try to change policy and to try to change society. And we think that that's wrong. We think things like doing social credit scores for Floridians is wrong. If you go to a bank and you want to get a loan on something, they should evaluate your credit history, just like they've always done, to add into that some type of political litmus test or ideological litmus test, or to penalize you because you own firearms or you're involved in that industry. That's just fundamentally wrong. And so our bill, the law that's now been signed, protects Floridians against discrimination, protects you against things like social credit scores, makes sure our pension fund is not being manipulated by ESG criteria. I mean, we've got retired cops, we've got retired teachers. That pension should be run to get the best return on the investment, not to try to impose a political agenda with their money. And so we think that those are very good. But at the end of the day, things like ESG and what they're doing with some of these asset managers, what they're doing with some of the large Wall Street banks and other corporations, they're trying to change the country without accountability, and that's wrong. So basically what we've said is no social or economic transformation without representation. You have a right to pass judgment on policy, and our ESG bill is really fighting back against that. So that's a major piece. Another piece that started to develop is the idea of creating what they call a central bank digital currency. And this is something that Joe Biden announced, I think last year, to say, hey, we need to study this. We need to see what would happen with CBDC, how that would work. And I don't think they would have done that if they don't intend on implementing this. And so basically what it would be is this would be something that would be controlled by like the Fed. It would be a digital, quote unquote, digital dollar. I think they want to crowd out and eliminate other types of digital assets like cryptocurrency because they can't control that, so they don't like that. Once they then have the ability to run a central bank digital currency, they're going to be able to have the window into what you're doing with the money. They're going to have the ability to control where that money is going. They could block if you filled up your gas tank too much. Hey, they're fighting global warming. You can't do any more. Maybe you bought a firearm last week. They don't want you to buy another one this week. So that would empower the government to do, I think, a lot of things that would not be conducive to freedom. Now people will say, oh, well, they're not going to do that. That's not what they want to do. They just want to, make it more efficient to do like cross-border, all this other stuff. And, yeah, maybe that's what they'll say. But I think that anyone with their eyes open could see the dangers that this type of an arrangement would mean for Americans who want to exercise their financial independence and would like to be able to conduct business without having the government know every single transaction that they're making in real time. And sometimes government will do things where they provide kind of a benevolent rationale for what they're doing, but it's really nothing more than a wolf in sheep's clothing. Well, I think with central bank digital currency, this is a wolf coming as a wolf. This is something that will be a massive transfer of power from individual consumers to a central authority. And that's just fundamentally antithetical to a free society. Now, why are we doing this? If Biden's just studying it, why would we want to get involved in Florida? Well, I think what's happened is you started to have a movement among the states to actually add CBDC to their uniform commercial codes. And this was something that was pushed by a lot of powers that be, that you do that. We looked at that and said, that ain't going to fly in Florida. We are not going to be adding central bank digital currency to our uniform commercial code. But we also said, you know what? We need to provide protections for Floridians against this. And so we'll put in the uniform commercial code that it's something we don't recognize. And the reason why we're doing that is because I think central bank digital currency is wrong. Congress probably does have the authority to authorize it if they wanted to. I don't think they will. But what the Fed has said is, well, we're going to consult with Congress. We're going to consult with the executive branch before we do anything with respect to CBDC. And ideally, we would get authorization from Congress. Well, The U.S. Constitution is not just a suggestion. It's not ideally that you get legislative sanction for something like that. You are required to get Congress to authorize something like that. And if Congress were to do it, that probably would trump what we're about to sign today. But if they do it by executive fiat, without having any legislative authorization, we believe that this protection here will serve as an important bulwark against really what would be, I think, an illegitimate use of federal government power. And you see it everywhere now. They don't vote on any of this stuff. You have a massive, out-of-control bureaucracy, and they will just issue 600-page rules that transform our economy or transform our society. They just did one. The EPA put one out about coal and natural gas-fired power plants. And nobody voted on that. They just did it. You see some of the stuff they're doing with home lending. They're actually making it harder for people that have good credit, and they're basically charging them more to pay for people that have poor credit. I mean, that's social engineering, it's bad economics, but it was never approved by the people's representatives. And so we have a bureaucracy that thinks it can do what it wants, and if we let this continue, these elections are basically window dressing at that point, because you have a Leviathan that just keeps churning out whatever it sees fit. So we're fighting back against that in Florida. We have fought back against it across a wide variety of fronts. I mean, you remember in 2021, they were trying to coerce people to take the mRNA COVID shots, and they said for nurses under CMS, you have to do this, otherwise you can't work. And Congress never enacted that. There was never any debate on that. They just did it. So we came in and said, no, that's not correct. State of Florida, this is a choice for you. You can't lose your job over it. They said, well, we're going to do it anyways, but they relied on Florida to survey the hospitals to see. And we said, we're not going to survey our hospitals. Okay, we're going to protect the people's jobs. And they fined us, a couple $1 million, but we saved thousands and thousands of jobs in the process. So we've been fighting back a lot on this, but it's a massive distortion of what a constitutional system of government is supposed to be. And I'm just glad that we're thinking ahead here in the state of Florida, because once this genie is out of the bottle, I think it'll be very hard to put back in. You know, the cash is king. Like when you have that, you control your own destiny. If you're relying on some digital system and you have no other recourse and it's controlled by a central authority, you're putting your independence in their hands, and I don't think we want to do that. And I think back to just like the need to be empowered individually when like Hurricane Ian hit. The power goes out, okay? Some people that had electric vehicles, and it's whatever you want, do, but, how do you plug that in if the power's not on? Whereas, you have your own tank of gas with a normal car, you control the destiny. You can put the gas in, you can go. You have cash, you can go make transactions if some of the systems aren't up and running. So making sure individuals are empowered is something that's very, very important. So I'm proud that we're going to be able to sign this protection into law for the people of Florida. We do not want to see any central bank digital currency, but we certainly reject any attempt to do that by executive fiat without the members of Congress actually having to go on the record and vote for it. The other thing that we're doing is looking at other ways that this agenda can impact individual Floridians. And so there's been a movement amongst massive credit card companies to basically monitor the transaction of firearm retailers and individual consumers through unique codes that they're calling merchant category codes, or MCCs for short. And so this is a new code. It only applies to either retailers that sell firearms or consumers that purchase, and it's not even really limited to that, because as you know, there are sporting goods stores that sell firearms. They also sell a bunch of other stuff. You could be going just buying sporting goods for your kids' athletics. And oh, by the way, our tax relief, which we'll be announcing, you have no tax on youth sports equipment for next year, which would be really, really good, starting July 1st. So you go in and do that. They can tag you or flag you as being somebody that somehow should be looked at, and that's just fundamentally wrong. So we believe that whole idea of MCCs is very political. We think it's going to be used against people just for exercising their basic constitutional rights. And so you had a movement in the legislature, you had Commissioner Simpson, a lot of people understood this, and I said I'm very supportive of making sure that this is not allowed in the state of Florida. So the second bill we'll sign will prohibit the use of firearm-specific MCC codes, and we'll be the first state in the country to step up to the plate and prohibit these massive financial institutions from collecting data on you, flagging you, just for basically exercising your right. I mean, if you go and buy ammunition for your firearms, then you go to one of these shooting ranges, should you be flagged for doing that? I don't think so. So in the state of Florida, you will not be flagged for doing it. So these are really important measures. I think that we're leading the country again. I think you're going to see other states follow through. I know some of the states are going to do the central bank digital currency. Some of them rejected the UCC addition to it, and so they're kind of neutral, which is still good. But we're going one step further, and we're affirmatively leaning in against and saying this is not something that's going to fly in Florida. And I do think you're going to see other states look to this whole idea of these MCC codes. And look, this is one issue that would affect, relatively narrow slice of retailers. It'll affect a decent number of consumers. But what precedent is this setting if we're going to have all these major financial institutions colluding to try to flag people they don't like for doing things that are perfectly legal and constitutional? It's one thing to flag somebody's like dealing drugs or something where, to assist with that. But this is really, I think, again, an attempt to change policy. All right, so we're going to hear from some folks before we put the John Hancock on both of these bills. So first, I'd love to welcome up the President of the Florida Senate, Kathleen Passidomo.
Thank you, Governor DeSantis, and I'm thrilled to be back in Southwest Florida with my colleagues in the Florida House, the lead legislative delegation. As you heard from the governor, we have had a historic legislative session. I have heard that from people all over the state. We passed over 200 bills. Some of them are game changers, groundbreaking, unbelievable work. And the reason that we were able to be so successful, and I'm not going to talk about the bills that we're signing today because they're just two in so many important measures, and there'll be others speaking about them. But the reason that we were so successful is that we had a Speaker of the House, myself, and a governor who were aligned. We have the same political philosophy. We have the same political philosophy. We care deeply about this state and the freedoms that we enjoy as Floridians. And so the takeaway for me and my colleagues is that we were able to pass meaningful legislation that will impact your everyday lives. And it started with the hurricane. And the legislation that we passed in the special sessions and then coming back during session, we care about Southwest Florida. The governor has been here, I think he's been here more than me lately. And, to bring aid and comfort, financial and compassionate care, and then passing legislation to help protect Southwest Florida. But we didn't stop there. We went and started to look at some of the initiatives that the governor mentioned to you. We sat down early in session, actually last November, and he said, this is what I want to do. I want to protect the individual freedoms of all of my constituents, meaning the state of Florida. And we did it. And it was seamless, it was well done, and I've got to thank the governor for giving the legislature, me and my colleagues, the time to get these really important issues done. And then, of course, we passed a $117 billion budget that has so many important things that are, I'm saying it because he's got the veto pen maybe, and I'm on, just to make sure that, take care of Southwest Florida. So I just want to thank Governor DeSantis for coming back down to Southwest Florida. I know you probably missed it because you haven't been here in 2 weeks. And, just thank you all for all that you do to make our lives and our jobs better. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate it, and it was great when the hurricane happened at the end of September last year, of course, and then the election happened. And so in Florida, as soon as the election happens, the new leadership comes in. And so Kathleen obviously had been affected by this storm in her own home, and we had done obviously the initial response, rebuilt the bridges, all that stuff, got the power, but we were just sitting there thinking like, okay, the federal government, sometimes they can help, sometimes it takes forever. We have a massive surplus. We need to be leaning in ourselves. And so at Florida DEM, we did things no state has ever done, like the temporary housing, put a travel trailer in someone's front yard. We did that way before FEMA would have gotten around to do it, and that's made a huge difference. Some of the other things, when we did the bridges, I didn't know if we get reimbursed for it or not, but I'm like, you know what, who cares? I'll pay for it. It's not our bridge as a state, it's a local bridge, but we'll pay for the bridge, we'll pay for the causeway, because time is of the essence. You get that going, people can get back in, they can start rebuilding, and there's so much ahead of schedule for where they would have been if they would have been stranded for months. And I'll tell you, I run into people around, like, I'm in Wisconsin, some lady comes up to me and thanks me for the Sanibel Causeway because she's got a place. It's like it really reverberates across the country. And so, but I think what we showed is that we, look, we want support. My view is I pull whatever lever I can to help the folks, right? And so some people would be like, oh, you're criticizing Biden, but yet you're asking for a disaster or whatever. Of course, I'm going to do whatever lever is available, but I also understand that just sitting around and waiting is not the best course of action. So we've leaned in. And so when they did the funding in December in the special session, I don't know that the state has ever done that before, where we're just going and saying, okay, here's some needs, we're going to do it, and we're not expecting the federal government to just do 100% of this. And we seek reimbursements where we're legally entitled to, but I think that that's really was a great signal to send, and I'm proud that they were able to do that. Okay, we have our Commissioner of Agriculture, Wilton Simpson.
Thank you, Governor, and I do think that y'all had a great session, Madam President, and congratulations. And I want to thank the Governor for his steadfast work that he's done for freedoms in the state of Florida. It was an honor to serve as Senate President in the prior 2 years during the pandemic, where we had unprecedented freedoms unlocked. But when you think about our Second Amendment rights, and part of the job as Commissioner of Agriculture is our concealed carries, we now have constitutional carry here in the state of Florida because of this governor's initiative. We're very proud of those programs. The bill we're talking about today that's going to be signed today is the Ammunitions Act, where MCC codes were being applied. And you had elitist liberals around this country asking credit card companies to apply the MCC code to track gun owners, right? If you go out and buy a gun, if you buy ammunition. And of course, that's just the tip of the sword. Eventually, you'd have MCC codes for everything. And in the digital world, it would be even worse. But what this bill does is very simple. If a credit card company or banking system tracks your ammunition and gun sales, they can be fined up to $10,000 for that. And so when we made this major announcement, and Representative Snyder's here today, Senator Burgess couldn't be here, the two gentlemen that got this through the legislative process, this was the tip of the sword. And for liberals, it's going to be something else next year. And your Florida legislature and your governor is going to act. So we're very proud that we were the first in the state to get this passed. We're very proud that other states are starting to pass this type of legislation. What we know is that credit card companies do not want to have different rules for Florida and Georgia or California or Texas. They don't want different rules. So they have stopped, we believe they have substantially stopped using these MCC codes, and we believe after this bill signed today that will put an end to it. So thank you, Governor.
Karen?
So I want to thank the governor and Florida legislators for seeing threats to liberty and for your leadership in defending free people against the forces seeking to control us. As the governor talked about, Big Brother's digital dollar is really the ultimate weapon of power and control over citizens. And it's why the Chinese Communist Party is pursuing it so zealously. Because the truth is, if you can control all the little things in a person's life, then you can control an entire society. But the beauty and promise of America is the ability for every individual to dream big, to work hard, and to be the author of their own success story. We call it the American dream. But over the last several years, powerful forces in Washington are on a relentless mission to take that pen out of our hand. And they're determined to have elites write the story using vaccine passports, ESG, or now digital currency. The goal is control of everything we buy, drive, eat, where we work, and what we do, putting our entire lives in a box of their design, not ours. But what's great is for every one of the left's attempts to mandate, dictate, or complicate our lives, the Florida legislature and Governor DeSantis has said, not in Florida. So I want to thank the governor and legislators because under your leadership, Florida is protecting the American spirit and giving people hope that freedom and opportunity will remain. Thank you.
Shirley?
Thank you, Governor. I'm the Florida State Director for DC Project. DC Project is a nationwide organization of women safeguarding your Second Amendment. CBDC affects everybody, even gun owners. As I am an advocate for the Second Amendment, I will speak against it. I did not grow up around firearms, and it wasn't until I was kidnapped and terrorized for 15 hours by a man who claimed he loved me that I decided it was time I needed to be my own defender. I purchased a firearm and I trained. You might be asking yourself, what does this have to do with digital banking? It's simple. It's freedom. I know what it's like to be stalked, to be controlled, to be oppressed, and to lose my freedom. CBDC allows the government to take the very characteristic of a domestic abuser. They will be able to track me financially, control my finances if they choose to, and basically control me. This country was founded on the principle of freedom. CBDC is the opposite, exact opposite of freedom. It's the foundation of tyranny and oppression. That is why I personally, and as a representative of DC Project, stand with and support the governor to ban central bank digital currency. Thank you.
Matt?
Thank you, Governor. Today is a monumentous day for firearms industry and the citizens of the great state of Florida. Whether you choose to exercise your right to bear arms or not, after passing an overwhelming majority in the Senate and the House, Governor DeSantis is going to sign Bill 214 into law. Simply stated, SB 214 blocks credit card companies from tracking merchant codes to monitor the sales of firearms in the state of Florida. This is a huge win for consumer privacy and for our right to bear arms. With the passing of SB 214, we are fighting back against the overreach of credit card companies and the veiled attempt to create a national gun registry in our country. Thankfully, we have an amazing governor who recognizes the importance of protecting the rights and the privacies of the citizens of Florida. You don't have to be a gun owner, or even agree with gun ownership to appreciate that the unwanted and unnecessary intrusion and to the lives of the people of Florida is contrary to our basic right under this Constitution. The law is also important for the firearm industry partners in Florida. Our businesses would be negatively impacted by credit card companies that single out and track firearms and ammunition sales. Our customers would be more hesitant to exercise their Second Amendment rights, but this is the type of overreach, if left unchecked, could also be extended to other businesses and other products. Imagine if the credit card company started tracking the personal items you purchased at your local retail establishments. I know that my own personal consumption of protein powder might raise a couple of eyebrows in Washington, D.C. Thankfully, Governor DeSantis has effectively cut this attempt intrusion by the credit card companies for the protection of all businesses in Florida. Fortunately, Florida is leading the way in defending our rights and values. The passage of SB 214, we are sending a clear message that will not allow our rights to be trampled upon. We will not stand idly by corporations or an overwhelming federal government try to undermine our liberties. This victory is a testament to the power of our democracy and our ability to come together and defend what is right. It is a reminder that we must remain diligent in our defense of liberty, continue to fight for what we believe in. I believe that Governor DeSantis is the tip of the spear of this fight in the state of Florida. In conclusion, I'd like to thank all the lawmakers who supported this bill, and especially Governor DeSantis, who's going to sign the bill 214 into law. This is a great day for Florida and our industry, and a victory for the people of our state who value privacy, freedom, and the right to bear arms. In closing, and I aside, I own and manage a little gun store and gun range in Naples, Florida called the Alamo. As I'm sure everybody recalls from their sixth grade history, the Alamo is where a group of Texan American men and women elected to stand and fight against an overwhelming force, all whom perished. There's a flag that symbolizes the fight and struggle representative of the Alamo. The flag has a lone star representing Texans and a cannon with the statement, "Come and take it." The state of Florida, where passage SB 214 protects our Second Amendment's right, is a 21st century embodiment of the spirit of the Alamo. Rather than come and take it, I'd like to take the artistic license and invite the rest of the United States to emulate the state of Florida. Come and partake. Let us stand together against a violation of any and all constitutional rights. Thank you.
Okay, Samantha.
Thank you, Governor. I'm thrilled to be here today, representing the 120 credit unions in the state of Florida and the 1 in 3 Floridians they protect every day. We appreciate the governor's bold leadership and the members of the legislature for taking action and moving Florida forward. We know that financial public policy is important to this governor and to the elected leaders here today. That's why we appreciated his support on the modernization of public deposits, but especially Senate Bill 7054. Credit unions are important to the fabric of Florida. We protect our consumers every day, and the governor knows that we are not Silicon Valley here in Florida. We are a different kind of business, and we should run a different kind of business, and that's exactly what credit unions do. We are safe and sound in serving our local communities. In doing so, we protect their data every day, whether it's from foreign bad actors or the overreach of the federal government. And that's why we appreciate the vision to make Florida different. But if I can take some personal license, we hope that other states follow your lead, Governor, and can emulate this law, because protecting your right and your freedoms is just as important to member-owned, not-for-profit financial cooperatives as it is to the elected officials of this state. So thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Whoever's coming up, come on up and we'll get it done. Uh-oh. All right. Flag lights are a little hot here. All right. Well, it's been a busy week, I'll tell you what. We did no land grabs by the CCP in Florida anymore, the farmland, and all the other stuff, and then we did the education bills with the teacher pay and the teacher paycheck protection on Tuesday, and then Wednesday we did the bill to fight against illegal immigration. And then yesterday, what did we do yesterday? I forgot.
Take a break.
Time flies when you're having fun. We did the no. We did immigration on Wednesday, and then we did the medical freedom package yesterday, and so then today to do CDBC and protect against these codes. I mean, that's a monumental week, that's for sure. Today's the 12th, right? Yes, sir. Yeah. All right, who wants one of these? This is the firearm and ammunition.
I'll take one of those.
Anyone else?
Alamo guys.
All right, so this is the CBDC. Okay, who wants one of these? Well, thanks everybody for who was involved with this. We're excited. We've got more in the hopper. We've got a lot of other good stuff, and so we'll be processing those in the days ahead. But we're just excited to be putting up a lot of points on the board and basically saying said we were going to do a lot of things, and we did it. And that's the way it should be. Okay. Any questions back there? Yes. Well, obviously, I mean, I would say the border should be shut down. I mean, this is ridiculous what's going on. You shut it down. You do need to construct a wall. I said, I mean, you guys saw us build those bridges. I'll send those people down to the southern border to build. I'll do that. We'll get it done. You also need to just have a policy. If you come across the border illegally, you get sent back. You don't get a notice to appear for a trial in 2 years. What kind of a deterrent is that? It doesn't work. We also have to come to terms with all the amount of fentanyl that's coming into our country because of this border. And who's doing it? It's these Mexican drug cartels. They need to be held accountable. We can't just let our people die. And then in terms of CBDC, obviously it should just be nixed in the executive branch. And what Biden did, just stop it and say, you know, we're not going to do that. So that's an easy thing to stop federally if you have an administration that's so inclined to do it. Okay, next. Yes, ma'am.
Kind of going off of what you said, if you were president today, what would your plan be out of order?
Well, just kind of what I said. We'd shut it down. We would not entertain any of these bogus asylum claims at the border. First of all, when you do an asylum claim, you're supposed to go to a port of entry. This is not break into the country, then claim asylum. That's not the way it works. You also have to apply for asylum in a safe country, your first safe country you get to. So if you have somebody crossing 5 countries to get to our southern border, that is not valid asylum. They would have had to have done that. So just rejecting that idea, having them wait in Mexico if they do have a potentially valid claim before that can be done, you're removing the incentives for them to want to come to begin with. They're coming now because Biden has told them anybody can come. And once you come, you know you're going to end up getting back. You also need to take all the people that came for Biden, and they do need to be sent back to their home country. There's no other way you can do this unless you're willing to send back. So you got to send back, and you've got to do that. And but I also think there are a lot of leverage points that the United States has vis-a-vis Mexico. You know, you have this Mexican president, he's criticizing Florida for enacting laws against illegal immigration. It's like he's got a disaster on his hands. He's got cartels that are totally out of control that are running his country. And all the millions of people coming into our country, they're all going through his country. I mean, what kind of a country just allows people by the millions to just traverse through like that? So I think that there's a lot of leverage points that can be used, and I think that they do need to do it. But, you know, that's a day one issue. I mean, you've got to be really, really determined. You can't let it slide. You can't make excuses. You got to go in, and you got to really go in with all guns blazing and using all the leverage that you have to be able to do it. It's important for the substantive issue of immigration is about what is in the best interest of the American people. No foreigner has a right to come to this country. You, as Americans, have a right to enact laws that provide whatever type of process you deem appropriate for that. But you can't have people coming in superseding the rule of law and just doing it on their own. And so that's something that's important to just validate that idea that we actually do, as Americans, control our immigration system. The other thing is, do you control the sovereignty of your country or not? I can guarantee you these other countries would not allow massive numbers of people to pour in illegally. I mean, they would put their foot down. And so clearly you should do that. It's also the policy about the types of people that are coming in. They're coming from all over the world, because they know if you just get to that border, that's a ticket inside the interior of the United States. So you've got people, I mean, I went there when we had people down there helping Texas. You know, there were people from Libya. There were people from the Middle East. I mean, there were people from all over the place that were going there. We have no idea who the heck any of these people are. Some are criminal aliens. There's no question about that. I mean, Maduro has released people from prison to go to the border. I mean, we know some of those folks. So that's a problem. Obviously, the drugs are a problem. They're all major problems substantively, but I think it's also just a bigger issue than even that. This country doesn't get things right anymore. I mean, part of the thing with the hurricane when we responded, a lot of people here were very appreciative, but it was almost like it was unexpected that government could actually do a decent job at anything. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But I kind of think, like, if this happened like during World War II, we would have gotten the border secured in like 72 hours. It would have been done. There would have been no questions about any of this. And so we need a little bit of that can-do spirit. And that's, I mean, heck, with just these bridges. I mean, we could have twisted, you know, we could have wrung our hands, gone through the bureaucracy. We said, no, let's do it. And so we did it. And I think that's similar with the border. I think it'd be a big deal for the country to get that right. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, we are hearing that the state is cracking down on gambling parlors, popping up all over Southwest Florida. So I just want to ask that if you have a problem with that, and are you doing that in any of
So I am not privy to exactly what's been, as you know, we have a gaming commission now, and there's a lot of that is done that doesn't get to my desk. So basically, we have rules in place, and I think the goal is just to follow whatever those rules are. Of course, we did do we did a compact with the Seminole tribe. They had not been paying anything to the state. They have the most profitable casinos in America here. And so we were able to start getting, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars a year. That got held up in court. We think we're going to ultimately win that and then get those payments. They're in escrow. That'll be released. That'll actually help the budget surplus that we have. So you do. So, and then there's different rules about, okay, what can you do? What can you not do? So I think they just need to be enforced fairly and whatever it is. But I am not privy to exactly what action has been taken, just because that enforcement is now being done, you know, short of my office. Great to see everybody. We will be back soon. God bless you all.